And action. Ardit, or at least Ardit's mom, had a question about exercise and calorie restriction for young people. Now, when you're in high school, there's a lot of growing potential, and everybody sprouts up differently. Some people hit the growth curve really fast in freshman year, some people not until college. But that's why using body mass index is a little bit tough. I have a previous video on BMI, and I explain what it is. With adults, it can be followed, and I usually follow the BMI and weight and height and blood pressure and pulse rate every year or every time we have a wellness check, which is usually once a year. Sometimes for people who are trying to make a change in life, then those are the measures that we go by to see if we're successful. I also use blood tests, and that would be helpful too. I'll also use endurance, perceived exertion. So all these things are measurements that we take initially as a snapshot, and then we take another snapshot and we repeat. When initially seeing somebody and we have a BMI greater than 30, then no question, that's obesity, that's overweight. Some would argue that's obesity, but at that point in time, blood tests being abnormal or not, then we have to make a change of some sort. And it's really easy because the standard American diet is just terrible. So all you have to do is get away from the standard American diet, more to a Mediterranean type diet, and half of your problems will probably go away. The other thing is, young people tend to spend a lot of time on the computer. Gamers especially can spend 4 to 6 hours without blinking an eye. In fact, you see some people playing like this and not moving. So it is definitely a trap to be involved in gaming. I'm nothing against the gaming industry. I remember when I got my first PlayStation. This is when I used to live in Naperville. I remember that day I opened it up. It was a present. Opened it up. I remember starting to play it, and then suddenly that night I became aware of where I was, and it was like 5 in the morning. The sun was coming up. I didn't sleep. That's because I was so involved in the game, and some of us will be that way. Some people, no, they can turn it off and it's boring and they can go on. But here's the thing, with young people, it has to be balanced. So you have to have some form of outdoor activity. You have to have some form of organized sport. And yes, if you're a parent, you're going to have to also involve yourself with that. Whether you're the chauffeur or you are the one who leads the exercise routine or the hike. Unfortunately, you gotta carve out some time. This is the part of being a parent. You gotta carve out some time and put it into an activity. Because if you just say, hey, I want you to do an hour a day of exercise, and you have a nice free weight routine or a setup in the basement, you're trusting that a young person's going to take away from the computer, which is really enthralling and visual poison, and then go downstairs to exercise. Yeah, that'll probably go on for about 2 days, and that's it. So unless you have an athlete who really is driven to be better in his sport or for his team. But outside of that, the likelihood is very low, because the gaming industry or just social media is just so addictive. Some people would say it's a rush to see how many likes you got on Facebook. It's a rush to see, or kind of scroll through and see what else is new other people are posting, or see, go deeper into the social medias. So it's just too easy to do. Even if you're dead tired, even if you're irritated, it's just too easy to do, to be involved in. So, you know, I think that's why it's so attractive. Exercise, it's hard to do. You have to be motivated, you gotta get your clothes together, you gotta go out and do something, you gotta keep it up. Even if there's pain, you have to continue through the pain. So that's difficult. So you have difficult and you have easy. So where's a teenager going to go? He's going to go for easy. So that's why he has to have, I think you have to have some form of incentive. So if I have somebody that's wants to compromise, I say, okay, if we got 4 hours of screen time, which seems like a lot, but if we have 4 hours of screen time, you must dedicate 1 hour at the least of activity. So as far as what activity, we're going to have to experiment and figure that out, but I think that will offset some of the tendencies towards obesity. Inactivity, even a standing desk. You can't see it, but I bought this. Well, let's see if I can turn it down. This is my desk. It's a wine rack. So I got it at Goodwill, and I have a standing desk out in the hallway, actually a variable desk out in the hallway, and we use that for the staff. But I do this because in the rooms I sit out here, I'd rather stand because I don't want to sit too long. Right now I'm feeling antsy, and it's only 1 o'clock, and I want to go work out or get a little bit more in my arms and shoulders. But so anyway, some of us are driven to do that, some of us are not. So it's the problem of convincing the ones that are not about the value or the fun of it. So young guy, even if the young guy feels that he's exercising, it might still take a little bit of sprinkling or a little bit of meddling around to make it doable, make it sustainable, and see the benefits. The other thing is also eating. So again, I have to go back to my gamers, sorry, but when you're playing a game and it's for hours at a time, it's easy to just have food and go like this, especially if it's in a bowl. And before you know it, because you're mindlessly eating, you'll finish the bowl, the package, the whole thing. Then you keep on going downstairs during breaks because it's fast, or at least the food that you would eat has to be fast. Go downstairs, hit the microwave, come back upstairs, put it by your desktop, and then continue playing. So I like to have a dedicated time for eating. Eat in the morning, high fiber, high protein. That'll give satiety. Eat in the afternoon, high protein, high fiber, a little bit of fat. And then eat at dinner time, good low glycemic index carbohydrates, mostly dominant carbohydrates, with maybe a snack somewhere. No sodas, no caffeine I don't like caffeine for kids. I think sugar does the same thing as caffeine as far as that dopamine response. And if you have a templated time of eating, and one of them has to be family gathering, then the situation is going to be stop and turn off the computer, drop what you're doing, and we got to sit. So there's something about the social gathering that's also very valuable for young people. I talked about that in my dopamine tutorial. When I went to Italy, I saw everybody just hanging out at the table and having a good time. And maybe that has one of the, maybe somewhere in that social practice is the reason that they don't die early like we do as Americans. But so we talk about activity, incentive-based activity, mandatory, every day. We talked about regular eating times, talked about family gatherings, and you have to have, finally, good sleep. Good sleep has to be, even if you don't feel sleepy, you have to have some form of sleep. It's supposed to be 8 hours a day, and some people fall above and below that schedule, but 8 hours a day at the least has to be presented, and then the brain has to be given that, and hopefully the brain will like that, so that we can wake up refreshed, not be craving, not be dehydrated, not go straight to the machine or the computer, and then get ready for exercise or activity outside. You know, sports are always fun to experiment with. Nutrition is always fun to experiment with, and actually it's fun to do in the kitchen. So even if it's a man or a male, I think that women usually are offered to learn how to cook and prepare foods, but men should be offered the same, boys should be offered the same thing. So we should spend equal time, no matter what, boy or girl, in the kitchen. So passing along the traits or the talents that grandma taught us. Homeschool or home prepared meals are much better than prepared meals in a gym or in a school system. That's what you can't control, especially if McDonald's drops off a lot at the local high school. So that's why, again, we have to spend the time with breakfast. When it comes time for school, breakfast has to be high fiber so that you don't have that rush or that cravings by lunchtime. Lunchtime also has to be more protein so you don't crash after lunch. And then you have that family dinner. So hopefully this gives a little bit of idea, Art. It's always hard to find your way. You're not doing anything wrong. But I just want to make sure that we don't have a problem as we get into college or as you get into being a young adult. So don't overdo it. Pace yourself. Have this template of a couple different things that we're going to do by end of the summer, and we'll fare okay by the time we get our next blood test.